Hi, I'm Zibby Owens, and you're listening to Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. This 30-minute podcast features a new author interviewed by me every single day, 365 days a year, for about 30 minutes. I am also the publisher for Zibby Books, which publishes 12 books a year in fiction and memoir. Our books are already out now. You can check it out on zibbybooks.com. And we have a magazine called Zibby Mag, where we have lots of wonderful essays and lifestyle features. That's at zibbymag.com. We have classes at zibbyclasses.com. And I recently opened a bookstore in LA called Zibby's Bookshop at 1113 Montana Avenue at 11th Street in Santa Monica. I hope that you are able to enjoy some of our other offerings, but this here podcast is the basis of all of it and started in 2018, and no matter what I do, this is basically my favorite thing. Enjoy. Allegra Goodman is the author of Sam, a novel, and this is from a live event at the Temple Emmanuel Streicker Center. 500 people were listening to us talk live on a webinar, and this is the audio from it, so enjoy. Allegra Goodman is the author of 5 novels, 2 short story collections, and a novel for young readers. Her fiction has appeared in The New Yorker and elsewhere, and has been anthologized in the O. Henry Awards and Best American Short Stories. She lives with her family in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Sam was chosen as a Read With Jenna pick on the Today Show with Jenna and Hoda, and is one of Jenna's book club picks, which is great. Thanks, Allegra. Thanks, Marjorie. Hi.
There you are.
I'm here.
Hi.
Well, I am so excited to talk to you about Sam, which is the Read With Jenna pick, which was that just the most exciting thing? Tell me the story of finding out you were a Read With Jenna pick.
Oh my goodness. Well, she picks them very far in advance, as you probably know. So I guess I found out back in May that I was going to be the January pick. So it didn't seem very real at the time, but a flurry of emails and very exciting. And I was sort of like, what? Me? My book? What?
Oh my gosh.
But when I did meet her, she really reads the books and she loves the books that she picks, and her passion is evident. And so I would say it's a great experience. It's very authentic.
Well, I'm glad she reads them. I didn't have any doubt. And I'm glad that she loved them, as did so many people. Oh my gosh, so exciting. So, Sam, why don't you tell everybody listening what this book is about? And by the way, I love this hot pink on Valentine's Day, and happy Valentine's Day to everybody who's watching tonight, and to you, Allegra. So,
and happy Valentine's Day to all the readers,
yes,
and the booksellers and the people who work so hard to get the word out about books like Sam. The book is a coming-of-age story about a young girl growing up on the North Shore of Massachusetts. And I always say the North Shore of Massachusetts because I grew up in Hawaii, and I grew up on Oahu, and the North Shore meant something different on my island. But it's a book about, somebody turning into a human being. It starts when she's a little girl, and it shows her heart opening and her mind opening and her becoming aware of the world. And so it is in some ways very simple because it is a sort of coming of age story. And in some ways it's very complex because people are so complicated. And the heart is so interesting to explore.
I feel like it's also really about a girl's search and desperation for her father's love, and how that's such a universal theme, right? Just wanting that attention, and maybe not every dad is as unpredictable as her dad, but we can get into that in a second. But I do think that's a big theme, is that sort of longing and coming to terms with the fact that your parents are who they are, which we all have to do at some point, I guess. Or we don't have to, but most people do.
It tends to happen where when the book starts, Sam is really young and her dad is magical. And he is a magician also, but he's just a magical being. And she doesn't mind even that much that he's, appears and disappears. And then as she gets older, she begins to see him as a flawed person, just as we all are flawed, but he has, some challenges in his life, and he disappoints her, and she has to grapple with that. And you're right. A lot of the book and a lot of growing up is realizing that your parents are human beings and people, not mythical mythical people up there, but they're human. And so a lot of the book is about her longing for his love and coming to terms with what he is and what he can't be for her, and it's hard. Some of that is hard.
It also really resonated with me that she never gave up. She doesn't really give up hope. Like there's all this, I feel like with parents and parental love, there's always this benefit of the doubt, right? Well, maybe this time they'll come through. Or so, somebody in the comments said, who is Jenna Pick? So I wanted to clarify. So Jenna Bush Hager is the co-host of Today's Show with Hoda, and she has a book club called Read With Jenna, and the Read With Jenna book club picks a book every month, and this was the January book for Read With Jenna. Anyway, just to clarify, I was supposed to not look at the comments, but I looked at the comments and got distracted. See, this is sorry, Marjorie, I wasn't supposed to do that. Anyway, one of the big through lines in this story is climbing, right? And trying to attain heights, both figuratively and physically. Tell me about that piece of the narrative. And do you climb rocks, or where did you even come up with this? You're from Hawaii and we're rock climbing in Massachusetts. What the heck? Where did that come from?
Well, we have rocks in Hawaii too. But I am not much of a climber. I'm sort of like Sam's first boyfriend who says, I rappelled a little bit in camp. I have 4 children. 2 of them climb a little bit, like just for fun. But I was just really, again, not a climber, definitely an observer as a writer. And I've watched people outside. If you go hiking around here with our beautiful New England boulders, you can see people climbing out there in the woods. And of course, climbing is so popular with gyms everywhere, and lots of little kids climb. And I was really interested in the sport because it has a side to it that's sort of privileged, where like children are on teams and they're competing in a gym, which is expensive. And there's a side to it that's very laid back, and it's just all about like going bouldering outside with your friends, and it's not and just doing it for yourself. In that respect, it's a little bit like the surfing that I grew up with. Like there are competitive surfers. And there are surfers who just like hang out on the beach, and it's like a whole culture, and like they're very mellow, and they're all about like, let's share our food and let's have some beer and, just enjoy nature. So I was interested in those two sides of it. And Sam experiences both in the book. She has a friend who's, from a wealthier family who is involved in the gym, and she gets a little bit involved in that competitive culture of climbing. And she also gets to know some people who just climb outside for fun. And I was just interested in the sport in that sense. I was also super interested in the idea that like an activity can mean different things to you as you get older. That, the thing that you're really passionate about when you're 10, like you might feel differently about when you're 16, and you might come back to when you're 30 and again, feel differently about it in that way. The other thing that really fascinated me about climbing is that it's a sport that requires a lot of strategy and intellect. Mm-hmm. So you have to be smart to climb. Like you have to think your way through and how you're going to do something. It's not about brute strength necessarily. And to me, that says a lot about sort of how you go through life. There's no route planned out for you. You have to like figure it out as you go along. And if you make one choice, then that precludes other choices. You put your hand here and then like, what do you do with your other foot? And so I was really interested in that aspect of it as well. And she's smart, and she's smart on the wall. She's smart physically and spatially.
It seems like she has dyslexia or some sort of learning reading issue that's never particularly diagnosed. It sounds like her father probably had that as well. And some of the hallmarks of that is having this like massive creativity in other areas. And I feel like the two of them in particular, the brilliance with the climbing and those scenes in the book where all of a sudden she just like finds a new way, or she's like, oh, I can go this way. Or like, it's so exciting as the reader to be like, yes, you're going there. But I love how you're showing sort of neurodiversity in its greatest form, in the struggles in school, but also where the strengths come in too.
Totally. And it's, there's so many different ways to learn and to grow. And you're right. Like she is one who, she says that she hates reading when she's a little kid. She clearly struggles with it. She gets extra help in school, and she tells her mom she hates books, but she's very bright. And, she excels in other ways. Her brother also has his challenges learning and with focus and behavior. So I would say, yes, neurodiversity is definitely present. And, there are many different kinds of intelligences. And I was just really, really interested in that. She's smart as a kid without being bookish.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I was super interested in when I thought about writing a coming of age story was writing one in which the protagonist doesn't become me, the author. Like a lot of books, like they're growing and at the end they become a novelist, or like a film, like a wonderful film like Girlhood, like, Ladybird, or I should say Ladybird. Ladybird's growing up in California. And then at the end of the book, she comes to New York and she's going to like become Greta Gerwig, like, or Boyhood, which is the one I was thinking of.
Yeah.
At the end of the film, he becomes a photographer and he's on his way to becoming a filmmaker like Richard Linklater. So, what is it like to write about the coming of age of somebody who's different from the author, not the bookish type?
I have to tell you, I'm writing a novel now, which is due in like 2 weeks. And that is exactly what happens in the novel. So maybe I need to switch it up.
Not that that's a bad thing. There's also a portrait of the artist as a young man.
No.
I'll give you lots of examples.
Maybe
Joe March and Little Women.
Maybe I'll switch it up. Who knows? Maybe she'll toss the whole career away. Maybe this is the big breakthrough I've been looking for. You talked already a little about the wealth disparity and how that really can affect training. And that's also such a huge issue that does not get discussed enough, I feel like, for all athletes, even track and field athletes today, and people who need to train, but then how do they support themselves? How do they do all the therapies they need? And for rock climbing and all of it. And there was one scene where her coach asks her where she's been or why she had to miss a session or something. And she was like, transportation. She just left it at that, which I loved. But it's true. There are so many roadblocks to success as an athlete. So just talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah, she doesn't, her mom is a single mom who's working really hard and they have one car and one driver. And if her mom can't take her and it's far, she doesn't live in the city, she has to take the bus if her mom can't take her. And that's over an hour. And so things happen and like you can be late and you can miss. And her friend Hallie, who, comes from a comfortably off family, like her dad installs a chin-up bar in her door frame so that she can get strong. And, when Sam asks her mom, it's like they're renting an apartment. They can't do that. She's like, no, it'll damage the door. Like, we can't do that. So the reality is really different for her.
The mom character was fabulous too. I mean, all of her day-to-day struggles, how the logistics of her life, which were very stressful, and how when just one thing falls out of place, like the whole the card tower cascades. And towards the end of the book, when she's thinking about the rest of her life, there was like an offhand thing where it said she was 38 years old. And I was like, 38? She's like a baby. I can't believe that she was this young.
Yeah.
Not that, anyway, that it blew my...
It's like, it intellectually because she like dropped out of college.
I know.
But you don't think of it and the reason is because it's all from Sam's point of view. And she thinks of her mom as her mom, which is another thing that happens when you're a kid. Like your parents are old. Like even if they're young, they're old because they're your parents. So even when her mom says, I'm young, I've got my whole life ahead of me. I'm, 37 and a half years old. Sam's like, yeah, right, mom. Like she still thinks that's old because she's like 20 or 21. So yeah, that perspective on age is very interesting. But
my son is like, my youngest son, I have 4 kids also, and my youngest is 8. He's like, are you going to be alive for my graduation? And I'm like, I hope so. Come on. He's like, will you be walking? Like
a sense of time.
Right. I'm like, are you going to have a cane? And I was like, what? No. Anyway. Yes. But I actually think your point of view with Sam is so interesting because it almost for a while could be a YA novel, right? It almost could have been packaged that way and marketed to that age group more. So I wondered if that was a debate you had or if this was firmly an adult book, but you want us to see the coming of age of a teen, up through past teenage years. But tell me about that.
That's a really astute question. I can tell that you're very much in the book world.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's good. I thought about it when I was writing it. I was just sort of like, because one of the things I do in the book is that the language starts very simple because her, the main character, Allegra, she's 20. And she's like, I'm 20. And I'm like, oh, okay. And she's like, well, you're 20. And I'm like, oh, okay. And she's like, well, you're 20. And I'm like, oh, okay. And she's like, well, you're 20. And I'm like, oh, okay. And she's like, well, you're 20. And I'm like, oh, okay. And she's like, well, you're 20. And I'm like, oh, okay. And she's like, well, you're 20. And I'm like, oh, okay. And she's like, well, you're 20. And I'm like, oh, okay. And she's like, well, you're 20. And I'm like, oh, okay. And she's like, well, you're 20. And I'm like, oh, okay. And she's like, well, you're 20. And I'm like, oh, okay. And she's like, well, you're 20. And I'm like, oh, okay. And she's like, well, you're 20. And I'm like, oh, okay. And she's like, well, you're 20. And I'm like, oh, okay. And she's like, well, you're 20. And I'm like, oh, okay. And she's like, well, you're 20. And I'm like, oh, okay. And she's like, well, you're 20. And I'm like, oh, okay. And she's perspective is a child's perspective, and then it gets more sophisticated as she grows up. But I was afraid that the first people who read this book were going to open it up and be like, is this a children's story? Is this the way, like, what is this? What category is this? And I was happy that my editor just thought of it as really a book for adults. And of course, there is crossover. Lots of adults read books for so-called books for children, or what? These are just marketing categories that break down, of course. But she really thought, she saw that it was more sophisticated than it let on at the beginning. And she saw that it was really about the process and the growth of this girl. So yeah, it starts off simple, like a children's story. And you're like, oh, this is this little girl and she's in school, like Beverly Cleary, like what is happening? And then, but it takes her from the inside through adolescence and becoming a young woman as well.
Well, yeah, once I kept reading and it became all about her relationships and, all the physics, I was like, okay, maybe.
It's not Ramona Quimby.
It's not Ramona Quimby. Yeah, exactly. It was also interesting how you brought in what it's like to have a family in which there are two different dads, right? The same mom, two dads, and the effect of the dad on the other sibling. And when the one would swoop in, and obviously they had more of a, financial relationship with one dad than the other, which you say very early, but how to navigate that as a child and what happens if that's not a particularly positive thing for the family structure.
Yeah, it's hard and it's complicated. And I think in that case, what really is shown is what a rock Courtney, the mom, is.
Yes.
That she's the one who holds those children together. And the two children are really close, even though they are, far apart in age and have different fathers. The three of them really are like this family unit. And it's really thanks to Courtney, because she's the one who's there every day. She's the one who, does all the hard, boring things, the difficult things, the not fun thing, the not fun part of parenting, as well as the fun parts, She's the one who's tired all the time.
Did you have like a mental image of Courtney? Do you have an actress in mind, or an actor? What does she look? Who is she in your head?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think of her as like she's beautiful, but she's a little bit getting heavy. Mm-hmm. And I have to think about who would be like somebody real looking, not a movie star type.
Yeah. This is tough.
Yeah, but she loves hair. She's a hairstylist, so she loves hair.
That's true.
I feel like I have to ask Courtney. They're so real to me. It's like I'll have to ask each of the people like who would play them.
Do you miss hanging out with Courtney all day, or do you feel like talking about her keeps her and Sam, of course, and all the characters? But are you sad when you put down a novel?
Yeah, they seem sort of real, sort of caught in amber in my mind.
Wow, amazing! Your career, take us through that. This is not your first book. Take us through the whole thing.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, we don't have a lot of time, so
Cliff notes.
Started young. Okay, this is the Cliff Notes. I wanted to be a writer since I was 7 years old. I really wanted to be a writer. I started writing seriously all through high school. My first story was published when I was 19. I published short stories. I started by writing short stories, and I recommend that to people interested in writing. It's a little bit more bite size. I then started writing novels. I, again, wrote all through school and just kept publishing. I had 4 children, kept writing. Women don't, what did you say? Mothers don't have time to read. Well, they do make time to read. Mothers make time to read. Mothers can make time to write sometimes. But I've been writing, sort of all through it. And my kids are now, my youngest child is in college, and my oldest child, who's 10 years older than my youngest, is an economist. And he actually said to me, I've noticed that your productivity has gone way up since we all left home. And I was like, you don't have to be a labor economist to figure that one out. So I am writing more now, I would say, than when my children were all little, but I kept working at it steadily. And so I've written like 8 or 9 books, or maybe 10. I'm not sure.
You just lose track after a while. You're just that prolific. It's like,
no, I don't focus on that. I work on the thing at hand. I live in the moment.
Nice. I like it. And what, are you writing something new now?
Yes, I am doing a couple things. I have a new novel, which is coming out in 2025, I think it's scheduled for, which seems like tomorrow. So, and I wrote a lot of it when I was writing this book, which is weird.
Oh.
It's a very, very different book, but I wrote them at the same time. But I don't talk about the stuff that I'm, in the middle of until it's done, until it's really done.
Wait, how did you write 2 books at the same time? Like, take me through
strange, and I don't
a day of that.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I write I like to sort of be one of those writers who sort of chips away at things. I like a little bit at a time. So after like 3 hours on something, I get really tired. So what I do is like a session in the morning on, say, Sam. And then in the afternoon, I do the other project because I'd be done for the day on the first one, if that makes sense. I just like to switch it up. And I don't try to write, I don't try to write a huge amount of either of them, but I just try to be very consistent. That's how I did it. Also, I did it because I had to do it. Because I was just compelled to write this other book.
Really? Wow. And you didn't get confused in all the characters or any of that stuff?
No, they're very different.
Okay. Wow. That's amazing.
Again, I didn't do that when I had 4 little kids at home, I should say. That's like me as the empty nester version of the mom.
But you still have your 10-year-old at home, right?
No. My youngest is in college now. Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said someone was 10. Then I was like, how does she...
she's 10 years younger than my oldest.
Oh.
I have 10-year gap between my oldest and my youngest child.
I was literally like, how does she have
no
10-year-old
economist? No. My oldest is an economist and he's 30. I have a 27-year-old, a 23-year-old, and a 20-year-old.
I see.
So that's it. Yeah.
Okay. So now like the floodgates are open and you're just writing nonstop. You got nothing to hold you back.
I have no one to blame anymore, which is the problem. No one to blame except myself if things don't go well.
That's another way to look at it. There's a theme sort of coursing through this book, both in Sam's relationships with the men in her life, including her father and her mom's other, I don't even know what to call that guy, her brother's father, and the relationships that she gets in. And I feel like there aren't a lot of men in here that make you feel really good about men. What was that about, and where did that come from?
Well, let's defend
Who should we
Sam's
defend?
boyfriend, Justin.
Okay, fine.
He's a good one. There are a few good ones.
Okay, I'll give you that.
I have to say, although Sam's dad is, he's so flawed, but I love him. I love that character. So I love him too. Her brother's dad is more problematic and can be pretty brutal at times. So yeah. So what is going on with that? Well, again, it's all from Sam's point of view, and her point of view evolves as she gets older. And if the book continued, it would continue to evolve. So I think at times that this is what she sees, around her. She also has a mentor in her life who's a man who's her professor at North Shore Community College.
Yep.
So, it's not all bleak. There's kindness, but yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. I think it's tough. She sees the world all through her own eyes and comes to see it through her mom's eyes. And her mom is a single mom, left to do really everything. So
I like how her first relationship, she was sort of just not into the whole thing at all. And, she's like almost wondering like, maybe I'm gay or maybe this, or I don't know. And then she, in her second, not to give anything away, but just in her second relationship, she's like, oh, this is why people kiss.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Thanks.
Any experiences in your own life that have informed this novel?
Oh no, I'm not a memoirist. It's all purely fiction. That's why I like to write fiction.
Yeah. Well, it is great because you see in her development and Sam's development, what she's looking for. And at times you don't know what you're looking for until you know who you are. Right. And so those things kind of develop in parallel, I feel like. Did you do that on purpose?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, her experiences with these guys, trying to figure out what she wants, who she is, and also what she wants. And, I think that also looking back when she's older, she may have a very different perspective on some of this stuff. She gets involved with somebody who she thinks she's in love with. She may not think that when she's, 40, when she looks back at that experience. But I wanted to, and so I took a little bit of a risk because I really chose to stay with her point of view. I really committed to her point of view, even where the reader's like, oh no, don't do that, or, oh God, like, how can you trust him? Or you're making a mistake. I just chose to really inhabit her for better and for worse.
Amazing.
So that's one of the things that happens when you write fiction. I'm very method.
Love it. When it was announced that this was a Read with Jenna book club pick, Jenna also has optioned this, right? Is that right? Or did I get that wrong? No, I got it wrong. That's name.
Well,
maybe
if she has, I'm the last. No, I don't.
No, you know what? I'm mixing it up with her February pick. I'm so sorry. Scratch that. Edit it out of the live feed here.
Whoops.
But that's okay. It would be a really neat movie. It's almost like, Wild, where you're conquering, you could see all of the terrain of the rocks and the building that she climbs. And I don't know. It would be
it's very visual.
Very visual.
You have to find the right people, like you were saying. You have to cast it well.
Yes. Have you seen Free Solo, the rock climbing movie documentary?
Oh, God, yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We'll have to do some collaboration or something. This isn't quite as intense. When you read for pleasure, which I'm assuming you find time to do, but that's a big assumption. What writers do you love to read? Like, have you read anything amazing lately? And who are some of your long-term sort of inspiring authors and current inspiring?
One writer I really love is Lily King, who wrote Euphoria and Writers and Lovers, which is set here in Cambridge, where I live. And she's just funny and smart and sensitive, and she's a great storyteller. Kevin Wilson, who wrote this amazing book. His last book, he has a new book out called Now Is Not the Time to Panic. And he wrote this one, Nothing to See Here. He's got great titles. He is so funny. And again, so smart, and his characters are wonderful. Like, he manages to be sort of funny and satirical, but also sensitive and character driven at the same time, which is such a tricky thing to do with a light touch. So, those are two novelists I love. I also love short stories. And I have a friend named Gish Jen who wrote a book recently. I think it's just out in paperback, called Thank You, Mr. Nixon. And it's like stories of China and the Chinese diaspora of Chinese in America. And again, there's a theme here. She's also funny and also smart, but the cultural issues that she tackles with such a light hand, she does such a good job with it. So she's another one. So I do like to try to keep up with fiction if I can. I also read a lot of nonfiction and biography, and just all over the place.
Amazing. When you talked about the name of Kevin Wilson having great covers, it brought to mind this current debate, which is, do you think it's better to have a title like yours, which is one word, the one word versus multi-word titles? Like, where do you fall on that? And what do you think?
I've done both. If you write enough books, you can just do all of the above, depending on the book, right?
Yeah.
I actually kept trying to think of a good title for this book that was like multi-word, and all of the titles that I came up with sounded so pretentious, and I felt like they weren't working. And my working title for the book was Sam, and the book is just all her. This book is not a landscape, it's a portrait. And it is her, and it's her face, not her face, but a photograph of a girl who my editor thought looked like her, with her intensity, and her name. And that proved to be the best title for this book. So I'm all about just, you pick what is appropriate to that project. Mm-hmm. And if you love all different kinds of titles, then just write something else, and you'll find the long title be appropriate to that, I think.
Well, I'm curious for the people listening, if they have a view, if you find yourself gravitating towards longer titles or shorter titles, or if you haven't even noticed, because people in publishing are always asking about this.
Anyway, thank you very much. Thank you so much, Allegra, and good luck with this book. And Zibby, good luck with everything, and we'll talk soon. And thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Zibby Owens and at Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Also sign up for my newsletter at zibbyowens.com, and sign up for my virtual book club and meet lots of authors on Zoom every other week. Thanks so much to Steve and Ryan at Texture Sound for the sound editing. And thank you to Morning Moon Productions for providing this fantastic intro and outro music.